Chris Swecker is a former assistant FBI director. Chris, so the deadline's done now. What's next?
Well, I mean, I go to the most recent Instagram post by Savannah, and I'm reading quite a bit into that. She is talking to the public now. She's no longer talking to the potential kidnappers. And those two are inconsistent with each other. If she paid a ransom or if they paid a ransom, that would imply they're trying to work with the kidnappers and they're trying to get Nancy returned. That didn't happen. I don't think the payment was made. I don't think there was ever really a kidnapping here at ransom to begin with because, as you pointed out, there weren't any credible authenticators that were provided. So now, there are other tracks ongoing. I mean, we've seen a flurry of investigative activity around both houses. We've seen some focus on the sister and that house. So, and there are other tracks going as well. A lot of digital forensics going on, cell phone analysis, video analysis in the commercial areas where finally are some video that might be usable. So there is still a lot going on, but that ransom demand and that particular avenue, I think, was a long shot to begin with.
So you're saying there was no proof of life provided, there was no ransom paid, and now the investigation is starting to direct itself towards the sister's house?
Well, I think that has been ongoing. I think they completely have to run that out to its logical conclusion and rule them out or rule them in. I mean, they're really one of three different scenarios here. One is there is a kidnapping and a ransom, and the other is there was a home invasion that went bad. She left the house bleeding in the middle of the night. And then the third is that someone that stood to gain financially from her demise from the inside perpetrated this. So I don't see a lot of other viable scenarios here, and I think all three of those the investigative team are playing out to the very logical end to it.
You might be right about that. How long would it take to rule out the family? Shouldn't that have been done pretty quickly? You scrub the devices, you run those down, and that's got to be it, right? Or is there more?
Right. Yeah, we've seen in the past where when you got into their devices, you saw internet searches that were very revealing. There were communications that were revealing. There was planning, purchases, financial transactions, what have you, and we've heard nothing. And I think the sheriff is in sort of a media timeout right now between last Saturday and today, and I think rightfully so. Unless they have something to tell us that has a law enforcement purpose to it, then there's no point coming back to the public and to the media to talk about details. So I think I think they finally gotten through to him that, hey, this is not a talk show circuit opportunity here. It's all business. This is all about trying to advance a law enforcement purpose here.
I don't want to speculate on the involvement of the family, but I mean, if you're a family member and you're somehow involved in this, I mean, how can you sit there with your other family members while they're going through something like this and produce videos and eat dinner? And it doesn't seem possible to me.
Yeah, I mean, I see the family seems to have come together, and I don't think there's any split there that we know about. We're on the outside looking in, obviously, and there was talk earlier on another show of a polygraph. Well, that's not a terrible idea, and that may have already been done. So we're not hearing anything from that investigative team, which is kind of unusual in a case where we have so many investigative agencies, so many different people involved. But really and truly, the leaks have absolutely stopped here. And that may be the discipline that the FBI brings to this, because they know that you really don't put out details unless you have a good purpose to do it.
And you're under the understanding that the family's cooperating fully with law enforcement, right?
Right. We've not heard otherwise. I mean, they're allowed into the house. I hear talk of consent searches. They haven't had to go get search warrants from a magistrate. You don't see them or hear about them lawyering up like people have done, and we've seen in the past in high-profile cases. So I don't see any indication that there's no cooperation here. And if you have nothing to hide, why wouldn't you cooperate? I think we would have heard about it by now if there was, if a stone wall was going up here.
Right. So you rule out the family, and then you move to your other option, a home invasion gone wrong. And that's probably where you think this is headed?
Right. Well, I don't know for sure, but my investigative instincts tell me there are a lot of people that have gone to that house over the years that know that there's an 84-year-old woman there of means who lives in a very dark house in a very dark area in a neighborhood where the houses are offset about 300 feet from the front of the road, and the cameras are obstructed, et cetera. So, that over the years, she's 84, so she has to have had delivery people, handyman, pool person, yard person, somebody, come around. I'm not saying they would have done it, but they would have provided information to others or induced or enabled others to do it.
Yeah.
And again, she left that house bleeding out the front door. So that's not a good sign.
No, terrible sign.
That means that she was roughed up on the way out.
Yep, she was roughed up,
or when they first entered the house,
or resisted, and not a great sign. That's absolutely sure.
Right.
Excellent analysis. Thank you so much for always joining Jesse Watters Primetime. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.